Story 1. She asked me to prom. I said yes. 2 days before prom she said, I actually don't want to go with you, but I already bought both of our tickets. As the guy, I expect you to pay me back for them. I tried to explain that's not how transactions work. She kept insisting it was my responsibility. I asked if she was smoking crack. I never heard from her again. Story 2. He said that he doesn't like ugly people and that they should all die or be put in a corner. Story 3. This happened to my wife before we met. There was an event in Salt Lake City, and she was from northern Washington. She had a crush on a man and joined a carpool with him and a couple of other people. They stopped to grab some fast food and then continued driving. As soon as he finished eating and drinking, he tossed the whole bag out the window while driving. After that, she barely spoke to him. When they arrived in Salt Lake City, she left him and went home with some other friends. Story 4. He was rude to our teacher because he was going to play baseball in college. I looked him up to see if he had become a professional baseball player. He is not playing professionally and has not graduated yet. He has bounced around from university to university, and since it has been over 4 years since high school, that is why I mentioned he had not graduated. Story 5. He told me about his stash of child sexual abuse material. Yes, I did report it. Story 6. I went on a date with a man to a Chinese restaurant. As we were leaving, he threw trash on the ground even though there was a trash can a few feet away. Later we went to his house to watch a movie, and he picked his cat up by the scruff of its neck and threw it. It was not simply setting the cat down to remove it from the counter. It was an actual throw across the room. I left immediately and told him why. He called me a bitch and a tease, even though I had given him no indication that I intended to sleep with him that night, and he shouted at me as I backed my car out of his driveway. When I reached the end of his road, I blocked his number. Story 7. He made fun of a girl who liked him for being chubby. He was chubby himself. I called him on it and walked away. Story 8. A few things. She told me she hated how much men share their feelings now. She said that if she dates someone, she wants him to be a typical man and not show any type of weakness. She said she did not want to hear if a man was sad or upset. She did not care. She liked heavy music, such as progressive metal and hardcore. However, she did not like other styles and would put down music she did not like, making you feel stupid for enjoying something else. When I showed her a friend's artwork, she said it was not impressive and that it would only be impressive if they did certain things. I understand not everyone likes every artist, but her demeanor was overly condescending. I did not realize this comment would get as big as it did. To be honest, I have no hard feelings toward her. We moved on. I do not think this is representative of all women. People have their own preferences. What she liked simply was not my thing. Story 9. They made fun of my mom. At a predominantly white school, he and a group of his friends always mocked how she dressed and her height. I didn't know him well, but he was part of the group, and that was all I needed to know. My mom is a sweet, short Asian woman who loves to smile. Yes, she sometimes wears goofy clothing, but no one makes fun of my mom. Story 10. He drove dangerously while I was in the car. I thought he was going to kill us because he was exhibiting road rage on the highway. I asked him to stop, but he did not. I will never go out with him again. Story 11. Hey, are we still good for tomorrow? Sorry, my boyfriend wants to come over. It was a great way to find out she had both forgotten our plans and had a boyfriend. Story 12. I asked her out and she said yes. 2 weeks later she broke up with me, saying she did not want to start anything new because she was moving in a month and had not told me. When it was time to move, she moved into my house and began a committed relationship with my roommate, who looks eerily like me. We were often mistaken for brothers or even twins. The house had thin walls. Story 13. I had a crush on a girl during my junior year of college. She liked to make fun of people and did it harshly. If I said hello to someone I knew, she would make a remark after we walked away. She quickly went from attractive to someone I did not want to be around. Story 14. She started posting videos of her making out with drunk old men on her Snapchat. We are both in college. Story 15. I had been talking with a guy on Tinder for a while who I thought was cool and cute, but he never seemed willing to meet up. One time, he randomly messaged me to say he had gone to someone else's place and had sex 3 times. I think he was trying to make me jealous, but it just made me feel a bit gross. Story 16. I found out she was a cousin. We were in class together and it was a pure coincidence. Neither of us had any idea until a family member casually asked, "Doesn't she go to your school?" Well, crap. Story 17. I was crushing on this woman for months, and it turned out that at her previous apartment she stole $1,500 to buy cocaine and abruptly ended the lease, giving her 2 roommates barely any time to find new housing. One of them had to move back in with an abusive mother. Story 18. We were 5 years old and had planned to marry when we grew up with a pancake cake. I was invited to his birthday party. He and his friend were climbing a tree. He was higher up. Suddenly, he peed on his friend. We never got married. Story 19. You shouldn't play Dungeons and Dragons. When you cast spells in the game, you are actually casting them in your spirit, and that lets the devil get into you. I was like, wait, I am supposed to be the one who cannot tell reality from fiction? Story 20. He acted like a complete dickhead, and when I addressed it, he said, "I know I'm an asshole, but I'm really sexy." Okay. Suddenly, you're not sexy at all. Story 21. I found out he was a serial cheater who had sex with strippers and masseuses while he was still involved with his former partners. Some people in the comments did not understand. Story 22. I worked up the courage to ask this girl out on a date, and she said yes. During the date, she spent the entire time gossiping about anyone she could speak ill of. I remember the moment it clicked that she was shallow and mean. Story 23. He tossed an empty drink bottle onto a random lawn as we walked down the street. Story 24. Not my crush, but someone who had a crush on me, or so I was told. She asked for my birthday and I told her. She then calculated that I was younger than her by about a week and said, "I did have a crush on a guy, but then I found out he was younger than me, so now there is no crush. Damn, dude." Story 25. We were out drinking. He got drunk and started fighting a man he thought had been harassing me. The man said he had not harassed me, and I confirmed it, but my crush still tried to defend me. I lost interest immediately. Story 26. Here is a lighthearted one. I developed my first crush when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. This was right around the time when Pokemon were first becoming really popular, so naturally I was obsessed with them. I had the cards, the Game Boy games, and so on. One day, I overheard the girl I had a crush on talking to her friends at recess about how weird Pokemon were, and in a flash a young love was extinguished. Fast forward about 22 years, and my wife also does not like Pokemon because life is strange. Story 27. Just because I enjoy the company of children and babies, she said I was a creep and a pedophile. Enjoying their company does not mean I want to have sex with them. Story 28. He tortured a housefly and gave an oral book report trashing my favorite book at the time for being boring and having too many words. Then he started bragging he could have any girl in the school he wanted. Shortest crush of my life. Story 29. I had a crush on a boy in 5th grade. He found out and gave me a hateful nickname, then teased me about my body and recruited his friends to tease me as well. Realizing he was a cruel person made me see things clearly. Story 30. He was mean to his mother. In front of me, he demanded money from her and then called his grandmother to ask for more so we could go out. I felt very uncomfortable. We were both around 21 or 22. I had driven from the Midwest to Dallas with him and was essentially stuck there for 2 days before my train was scheduled to leave. His behavior was unacceptable, and I felt uncomfortable the entire time. Story 31. He got in his car for a date, rolled down his window, and threw about 5 fast food cups on the side of the road. He then said there were enough illegals around to clean up after him. Now, story 32. It wasn't something she did, but her breath smelled like feces. Story 33. I had been seeing this girl for 2 months in college, and things were going all right. While I was helping her move, she chose that moment for a serious talk. She sat me down and, in a very serious tone, told me she had been doing some digging. She confronted me with the fact that I had dated black women. First I thought it was a joke. My brain could not comprehend that this was still a thing. She was dead serious and explained that, while she had nothing against black people, she did not believe in mixing races. I was dumbfounded. I got up and walked out. Story 34. They rejected me. Don't keep trying when you know it's pointless. Story 35. I misunderstood a comment, and he was rude about it in front of a few people. He laughed at me instead of kindly correcting me. What a jerk. Story 36. It was a teenage crush. He had multiple girlfriends who did not know about each other. Disloyalty is not cool. Story 37. It was a mix of sudden, extreme, explosive road rage and a misogynistic rant that came out of nowhere. He is an ex now, but he has gotten worse. He showed his true colors. Story 38. She asked me if I wanted to go to a concert with her. Then she expected me to pay for both tickets even though I knew she had gotten them for free. I promptly laughed and told her to fuck off with another idiot. It is funny how fast the ugliness on the inside can overcome anything good on the outside. She did me a favor that day. Story 39. She saw an Oreo in the cleaner's dustpan, picked it up and ate it. Story 40. We were about 8 years old when he asked for a pen. I gave him mine. He chewed on it, which was an instant turnoff. Story 41. I told her I liked her. Then she blocked me on all social media and bullied me harshly whenever she saw me. Edit. Jesus Christ. This did better than I expected. I am reading everyone's comments, and someone suggested flattening her tires. I was joking. Please do not do that. Story 42. Trigger warning. Animal abuse. He would constantly hit his cat in front of me and scare him on purpose. The poor cat had bladder problems and would get hit every time he had an accident. Story 43. A man I went out with kept trying to persuade me to have sex with him after I told him no. Some people simply cannot take no for an answer. Story 44. He told me that while he thought I was not dumb, I could not be smarter than him because I was female and a few months younger. Our test scores, entrance exams, and work history later showed that was a lie. Story 45. She was going to a party. I told her she seemed unenthusiastic. She replied, "Don't use big words." Story 46. Long distance, only online crush and boyfriend. We were playing a modified tabletop role-playing game in the early 2010s and made the horrible mistake of playing versions of ourselves with the same names and ages. A lot happened, but what really hurt was feeling like a third wheel with him and his best friend. We were in a survival setting, so we delegated chores to make sure we had supplies, fuel, and ammo by the end of each day. Every time my boyfriend chose to go with his male friend for tasks, I didn't mind the first couple of times, but I wanted a day when the two of us could hang out, since this was a long-distance relationship. It never happened. When I pushed the issue once and said I was coming along to hunt, they ignored me and did their usual thing. The joke was on me. My boyfriend was deep in the closet, and hanging out with his male friend in the game was him living out his fantasy of having a boyfriend. Story 47. He didn't defend me when his friends tried to assault me, he just laughed with them. I was never popular and was always bullied. People called me a prude because I had never had a boyfriend at the time. Some classmates started a bet. Whoever could do me in, a slang phrase in my language that could mean anything from making out to sex, would win. Each contestant contributed money. At its height, the prize was about 100 euros. Suddenly, I was invited to popular parties. People tried to make me drink. Strangers started flirting and groping me. More and more people learned about the bet, so even people I'd never spoken to, including complete strangers, began contacting me. I didn't know about the bet and didn't understand why some guys, and sometimes girls, wanted to hang out or see me drink. I don't drink, so it was very uncomfortable. On a school trip with my year, things got out of hand. With reduced teacher supervision, people groped me and asked if I'd ever kissed anyone. The scariest part was when a couple of guys cornered me in the park and described in detail how they wanted to have sex with me. Some were classmates, some were friends of my crush, and one was my crush. I was a 15-year-old with no adults in sight, just me and about 10 16-year-olds. I hoped my crush would defend me. He seemed like a nice guy who never laid a hand on anyone and was usually friendly. Instead, he laughed. They told me how they would rape me, and he laughed. Took 2 more months before another girl told me what was going on. She used the phrase "do in," and I was too flustered to ask whether she meant the light version or more. When I told the teachers about the bet and who was involved, and that no one had informed me, they said I had no proof, that I was imagining things again, and that boys will be boys. They asked, what can we do about that? It all stopped when I got a boyfriend that summer who was 5 years older and who later turned out to be abusive. He looked older, so most of the guys seemed too intimidated to touch me. That's how my crush lost my interest. Story 48. She disrespected the food my mom made especially for her. Story 49. Both of my parents smoked and died of lung cancer. I saw it coming when I was a child. It was a complete turn-off and a buzzkill. Story 50. He threatened to kill me and himself if I broke up with him. We were alone in the house, and he had an episode where he spaced out, became robotic, and dissociated. He acted very slowly and lethargically and had mental health issues. I grabbed my things and ran. I never saw him again, but I know he was hospitalized. I am married now, and he has not contacted me since. I hope he is doing better. Story 51. She referred to Mexicans as wetbacks. I look white. What she did not know is that I am part Mexican. Racism of any kind toward anyone is an instant turnoff. Story 52. Turns out he never bothered to develop a personality because his looks and sporting prowess carried him through every interaction in his life. I did not care about sports, so when I finally had a one-on-one chat with him, he was a complete void. He could not talk about anything. He had not developed the ability to ask questions because he was all too happy to be praised and talked about all the time. It was bizarre. He did not know what he liked, had no real opinion on anything outside of sports, had no hobbies, and was generally dull as dishwater. Note: I am seeing responses suggesting I was dismissive of him because I disliked sports, or that he was shy and could not ask questions. No, I have met plenty of people who like things I do not, but their passion and desire to share draws you into the conversation. There is a difference between being talked to and being talked at. This guy did not care if I watched or liked basketball, whether I understood the references, or whether I had heard of a player or a coach. Even about the one topic he cared about, he did not include me in the conversation. When I asked what he did in his downtime, he said he sometimes played video games to de-stress. I asked which games he loved playing, and he said, and I quote, "Honestly, mostly anything." No follow-up. Then I asked about his last basketball game, and he switched into chatty Cathy mode again. The same pattern repeated when I asked about movies, television, art, politics, food, holidays, childhood memories, and mutual friends, and so on. He never asked me a single question the entire conversation. Not even, "Do you watch basketball?" He was happy to talk at me about his stats, player interactions, and strategies, as if I should enjoy listening to him go on and on. We were on a coffee date that he had asked me out to, so for people saying I was barking up the wrong tree and he did not want to talk to me, I would argue that probably was not the case. Story 53. We were on a date at Jamie's Italian, and he ordered a salad for me. Story 54. I had a crush on a girl who was dating someone at the time. While I was hanging out with her, she kept checking her phone. Later she said she was upset because her significant other had not texted her first that day, so they had not exchanged any messages. That gave me useful insight into what a relationship with her might have been like. Story 55. I had a crush on a woman for a couple of years but never asked her out because life was busy. Eventually I did ask her out and took her to see the latest Star Wars movie. Before it started, she was downing beers and became clearly intoxicated. During the film, she talked through most of it and kept checking her phone, and she even made rude comments to other patrons for talking, which made me cringe. Later, we stopped at a gas station for cigarettes, and she was rude to the cashier because he could not understand her. She asked me to stay the night, but any attraction I had was gone. Story 56. She told me her cat was sick, so she snapped its neck to put it out of its misery. Story 57. She had a parking placard for people with disabilities that she had stolen from a friend and used abusively. She was 25 years old, extremely attractive, and an entitled sociopath. Story 58. She tried to convince me that the earth was flat, that the moon landing was fake, and that I had to accept Jesus into my life, all within 10 minutes. It turned out wine was not her friend, but it saved me that night. I laughed out loud. Story 59. Oh, if only my brain could better turn off my feelings once someone treats me terribly. I think I'm better at this now, but my teen years and early 20s were not good experiences with women. Story 60. When I said I was legitimately suicidal and wanted to talk to her to get my mind off it, she responded that I was self-centered and said, laughing out loud, "Do it, pussy." The best part is I thought we were good friends up until that point. Story 61. I took her out for a date, and she began talking about her ex-partner for the entire evening. It was deflating, to say the least. Story 62. I heard her say she does not like black people. 15 years later, I found out that her sister does. Story 63. In my very first relationship, they kept telling me every single day how much they had been hurt in the past, and that they hoped I would not make them suffer the same way. I tried to help by talking about their problems, but because it was a long-distance relationship that was difficult. Their frequent talk about suicide made me very worried and seriously affected my mental health. I wanted to leave because I had lost interest, but I did not want to hurt them since they kept saying how much they had been hurt. One day it became too much and I blocked them everywhere. I know I am kind of the bad person in this story for leaving like that, but I simply could not bear it anymore. Update. I read most of your comments. By the way, thanks for sharing your point of view. I did not mention that before blocking them I had told them I had lost interest and did not want the relationship anymore. I was very confused and did not know what else to say. I just wanted to get away from that person. That was the worst thing I could have done, and I realized it thanks to some of your comments. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, do not make the same mistakes I did. Explain to that person how it has been for you so they and their future boyfriend or girlfriend will not have to live the same experience. Story 64. I went out to dinner with her. We both had a great time and wanted to go again, but she did not have a day off for a couple of weeks, so we planned for the next Friday she had off. She told a friend that it was one of the best dates she had been on and that she had an awesome time. She later canceled because she had to help her mother. After I tried to set something up again, she mostly stopped responding. She left one message unread and replied with a shrug when I asked about her next day off. She wondered why I was not texting as much. But if someone acts disinterested, I will be disinterested. This is not high school. Story 65. There was smoke in my car. I knew she was a smoker, but doing that in someone else's car, especially a non-smoker's, without permission is a complete lack of consideration. It made me even more angry because the previous owner had been a smoker, and it took nearly a year to remove that smell from the car. The car even broke down halfway. Story 66. She said that she does not like guys under 6 feet when rejecting another man. She was 5 feet 8 inches. I am 5 feet 10 inches. She is 5 feet 3 inches. This is bullshit. Story 67. They were angry with me for leaving them on read and for not responding when they said okay. Story 68. I have shared this before, but one time I was on a first date with a woman I met online. I thought she was very attractive and we seemed to hit it off over text. We were at a bar when she suggested a people watching game where we made up backstories for the other people there. I thought it sounded fun, especially since I sometimes played a similar game with friends on the train. It also seemed like a good icebreaker to get us talking. She took all the fun out of it by being ridiculously cruel in her assumptions. Felt like she was projecting her issues onto those people. For example, a man sitting alone at the bar could have been waiting for someone. But because he was alone, she called him a complete loser with no friends who hated his life. That completely killed the mood, and I lost interest. I could not see myself going on a second date with someone like that. Story 69. She crumpled her cigarette pack and threw it out of the car window while I was driving. I had to ask her, "Did you throw that out of the car window?" I turned around to go back and pick it up. She was embarrassed, but I knew I could never be with someone like that. Story 70. We were walking down a road in Manhattan holding hands. He abruptly tossed my hand away and I asked what was wrong. He waited until the man coming toward us had passed and said he did not like black people or African men. Crushed, I told him I did not want to spend time with him anymore. Story 71. She was very attractive but extremely rude to the wait staff at the restaurant where we had our first date. Beneath her supposedly friendly and happy demeanor, she seemed like a hostile person waiting to come out. I left quickly. Story 72. Not necessarily a crush, but a married coworker I might be interested in if she were single. My coworkers had a bar crawl for a holiday party one year. We finished at one of the bars, so some of us started going to the next bar down the street. My coworker and I passed a store that sold games like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. She half joked that she was tempted to go in and laugh at the people there. That rubbed me the wrong way for two reasons. First, she is a school counselor who talks about how bullying is wrong. Second, I might play those kinds of games, so she unknowingly said she would be willing to laugh at me. Story 73. I found a bag of syringes in his car, and he had no explanation. I have no interest in dating a drug user. We were 16. Story 74. When I was staying in a psychiatric ward several years ago, I became friends with a person who was there for addiction treatment. Patients in addiction treatment and general patients were not supposed to mix, but I was in a very bad place at the time and became very attached to him, so I spent a lot of time with him when the nurses were not looking. At first, he did not want to tell me why he was there, and I did not question it. Eventually, he told me that he was being treated for viewing child pornography. That ended my crush very quickly. Story 75. If I were to say yes, I would just end up cheating on you. Story 76. We went on our first date and were sitting outside at a cafe. I was people watching while she kept pointing out what was wrong with everyone who passed by. She said she enjoyed picking out people's flaws. She thought the date was going well and wanted me to go home with her. But I was so disgusted by her personality and character that I declined. She was physically attractive and worked as a bikini barista, but I could not stand being around her once I saw how she looked at other people. Story 77. He told me that God did not intend for me to exist on this earth because I am a child conceived by in vitro fertilization. Story 78. He admitted, unprompted, that he had sexual fantasies about his aunt. We had different life goals, and that ended the urge to continue the flirtation we always resumed when we were both single. Story 79. On our second or third date, we went to breakfast and ran into his friend, who sat with us for a moment while ordering a coffee to go. He was rude to the server, and I could not get over that he had friends like him, so I let it go. About a year later, I ran into him again. He said he had written that friend off as a jerk and should have stopped giving him the time of day after high school. I high-fived him. He thought it was funny. We dated for a few years after that. Story 80. I was dumped by text message the day after Christmas, 3 days after my grandfather, to whom I was close, passed away. Story 81. We were on break eating lunch. The way he ate made me nauseous. He was chomping, licking his fingers, and taking bites 3 times the size of his mouth. It was an instant turn off. Story 82. I found out that he had tried to sexually assault his underage coworker in the stockroom. I lost interest very quickly that day. Story 83. Earlier this year, I was newly single and sleeping around a bit. I met a woman named Harriet. She was lovely. We had sex a few times. She was very kind and always had lots of energy. Once, around 3 a.m., she cleaned my kitchen. Small, odd gestures like that. It turned out she had a crippling amphetamine addiction and used it morning, noon, and night. That was a deal breaker for me. Story 84. He walked me home from school. Before that, we had never really spoken at length. I cannot remember anything he said. I only remember realizing he was as dumb as dirt. Story 85. I found out that she has 2 boyfriends and does cringeworthy TikTok challenges. Story 86. I am actually on my way to meet her, but the last 24 hours have given me second thoughts. I smoke weed and used to deal. She knows this and has been arranging to meet me for the past week. Every time it comes up, she mentions smoking and asks me to get her some. I do not mind her asking me to buy weed if she pays me back, but it is almost every other message she sends. Do not get me wrong, I would love a stoner girlfriend, but not if that is her whole personality or the only value she sees in me. Story 87. We were out on a second date with a girl I fancied. We went bowling and had a really great time, although I cannot remember if I won. Afterwards, she told me that a friend of hers really wanted a pair of bowling shoes, so she casually slipped the rental shoes into her purse. It was a silly, small theft, I guess, but it instantly made me lose all interest. Story 88. I was chilling with them and they said at least I am cute. If I were not cute, I do not know where I would be. I am so glad I am not ugly. Being ugly must suck. Immediately, I wanted nothing to do with them. In my head, I thought, get me the fuck out of this car. Thinking you are hot shit is not a good look. Story 89. She said no when I asked her out. She never disappointed me, and I think I could have feelings for her again. However, the fact that she does not feel the same way ended those feelings, because I believe someone who returns my feelings deserves them more. We are friends, and I still like her, but now in a friendly way. Edit. Wow. I have never had this many upvotes. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.